Minh Trang.
Hi, and this is Zoe.
Welcome to episode 6 of Two Girls One Podcast.
Yay!
This is God knows how many take it is already.
Yeah, especially with the intro. Chang do the intro, and I'll be like, no.
Zoe has been Christianering me, and she's telling me that we're not getting out of this room until I get this right. So let's hope that this is the version that you'll finally be seeing.
I just want to say that I had a really funny joke to Chang earlier. I said, Chang, I don't need you to be Kristen Stewart. This ain't Twilight. I need your energy up here.
Yeah, she was like, you are here and I need you up here, okay, honey? And I was like, yeah, okay. Sorry.
Yes, Mom.
Yes, Kris Jenner. So today's episode will be about beauty standards, and it is funny because it's a coincidence that this episode is the one where we decide to do a video recording, which means that you will get to see our faces and judge whether we are attractive or not based on your own set of beauty standards.
And please leave a comment on YouTube. Tell us of your ratings.
No,
that's a test.
Yeah.
If you do it, you're a terrible human being. You failed. Okay, get therapy.
And also the funny thing is, so before we started recording, Zoe had so many self-conscious thoughts about her body. She was like, "Oh, I look fat in this angle," and she made me switch sides with her endlessly to see whether her face looks different, what is her good angle, and spoiler alert, they're all the same. But anyway, I indulge her.
That's Chang's another way of saying you look like shit, friend.
No, you look beautiful regardless, and you're not fat. And not that being fat is a bad thing, but you're not fat. Objective truth. But anyway, that just shows how beauty standards can be so unrealistic and can be so prevalent and so harmful to us, that makes us makes our thinking, our perception of ourselves become distorted. And that's why we wanted to do this episode. And to start, I will be giving you our definition of beauty standards, and this is where I get really nervous because this is where I get interrupted by Zoe to re-record every time. So let's hope I get this right this time. So beauty standards are a set of physical traits or physical characteristics that are deemed desirable or attractive by a set of people, a community, or by people in a region. Did I get it right?
Region.
A region.
Country, area, culture. Yeah, but you got the point. Good job, Chang!
Thank you.
If only I could do sound editing, but I can't, so
and then Zoe, do you wanna tell them?
I'm sorry. I get so carried away with how well Chang did there, and I forgot about my part. So we want to elaborate a little bit on the definition by discussing our context, right? So as Vietnamese women born and raised in Vietnam, the specific standards that are imposed on us, right? You need to be very pale,
pale skin,
really pale skin, slender, slim. Oval shaped face, not too bony, or have strong jaw lines, or cheeky or high cheekbones, tall nose, full lips, but not pouty, not super. Not Kylie Jenner lips, not big mouth. What else? Do I miss anything?
I think also very slender legs and arms as well.
Yeah,
big boobs. And hair needs to be straight.
Yeah,
black straight
hair,
fine hair, shiny hair.
Yeah, big eyes. Double eyelids. Yeah. So those are the ones that from a young age we were told that those are what makes you beautiful. Those are desirable. But we're living in 2022, and with globalization and the import of Western values and their set of beauty standards nowadays,
they change.
They change as well, right? Yeah. So also tan skin, really toned body, really curvy, at the right place, right? Hourglass shape, body.
And actually, like big hair is all the rage right now.
Yeah.
Like flat or shiny hair, fine hair is no longer
Considered boring.
yeah. And so big hair and voluminous hair and pouty lips.
Yeah.
Big eyes are still like deemed desirable.
As always, tall nose still very much in.
But Western people actually prefer the strong jawlines.
No,
right.
I mean I said tall nose.
No, but I'm talking about
Jawline,
like to show that beauty standards change.
Mm-hmm.
So a characteristic that is not deemed very desirable by one culture or one country can be perceived as something desirable by other people in a different country.
Yeah. I remember growing up feel very conscious, and I mean I guess till this day about the shape of my face. I think Jack shared this struggle as well, and then when I was in the US, like I commented on how like the jawline
very well defined.
I'm like, what?
And I went on a date with a white guy, and he worshipped my jawlines. He's like, oh my god, that's so great. That's what jawline should be like. It should be very like well defined and should be very strong. And I didn't feel like it, but anyway, that's just to show you that beauty standards change, and they also change over time.
Yeah. Even in the Western, right? In the Greek myths, you have these like women's or goddess are like very supple, right? Very they're not skinny. They're not skin and bones like the
current trend right now. And so some of those beauty standards can be very unrealistic, and that's why they get harmful, right? Because like when we see how beauty should be, and because they're unrealistic, they're not achievable by normal people, average people like us, and we feel bad about ourselves. Do you have some examples?
Oh my goodness, I was waiting for you to ask. Talking about unrealistic standards, I feel this very strongly. One is the the extremely curvy at the right place, and then still like super toned abs and legs and arms, but really big boobs and booties. And I think I'm not saying that no one can achieve that kind of body, but there's so much works, both physical and could be like financial work that goes into those body that's usually most of us ordinary working like middle class people cannot afford it. And I think and then when we have a full day of work and we go home and then we look at those bodies on social media and we're like, oh, I don't look like that. That means like I'm not good enough.
I'm not trying hard enough. I should be trying harder.
And then the other thing is about like beauty. I mean, unrealistic standards on our genitals. I saw ads on Instagram, Facebook on these kind of spas that give out treatment to bleach your nipples, your vagina, your asshole, because, and I can't say it in Asia in general, right? But in Vietnam, and this is mainly for the male gaze, that the pinker our genitals are, the better. And the thing is, biologically, after puberty, with the hormones, it gets dark. But then we feel so ashamed of something so natural, and we all we were taught and made to feel that we need to look like baby pink, like we need to have baby pink nipples. We need to have a vagina that doesn't really have a labia majora. I have been asked going to the spa, like, hey, do you want to trim that part? And it's insane because that's genital mutilation that I was asked of. For what? Just to fit in that beauty standards.
And like you mentioned the ads, and I saw those ads as well, and the content is always about, do you want to keep your husband interested? Do you want to feel sexy? Do you want to, like, keep him attracted to you? And it's always about the male's pleasure. It's never about the women. It's never, oh yeah, the beauty standards is you should have very pink nipple, but it's a lot of pain. Are you willing to go through that pain? And like, people think it's natural, like to want those, and to pay money to have pink nipples, or like have pink vaginas.
Yeah.
And
it's crazy. There's a lot of I also saw some ads recently about women who have given birth. Who need the procedure to like shrink their vagina.
Yeah, because there's a myth that because you give birth or because you have sex a lot, then your vagina will not be tight anymore. And so it's very infuriating. And like, I'm like,
but it's so common.
And it's so common. It's like common knowledge, and then everyone is like, of course, like everyone thinks it's true. It's like,
yeah, of course.
Oh, of course.
you don't want to keep your husband?
Of course, your vagina will loosen the more that you have kids, or the more that you have sex. And like you said, the myth about the more sex that you have, the darker the color of your nipples become, or the darker the colors of your vagina becomes. And it can impose shame on like teenage girls who go through puberty and sees that the body changes, and they're like, oh my god, like I am no longer pure. Like,
that was me.
Yeah,
that was how I felt in high school. Because I mean, at the time I didn't know that the color changed because of puberty. And it was around the time when I had my first sexual experience, and I felt so guilty and so ashamed. I'm like, oh my goodness, does this mean that it's a mark, right? So like my future partners will know that I was tainted. And you said this in different recording before, that how sex is so vilified for women.
Yeah, right. Like it's a way of keeping women from having sex, and like
under control.
Yeah, control women and keeping them from experimenting or like experiencing sexually, while like the men have all of the power.
Yeah.
Like you need to make your nipples pink, or you need to get your vagina, like tighten your vagina for your men.
Yeah. And I have not seen an ad or seen a man talk about bleaching his dick.
Yeah, or like enlarging his dick for the women's pleasure. There's like enlarging dick procedure
for their ego.
But it's never about like satisfying your female partners, or it's always about you. Feel good about yourself. You feel like masculine. Yeah, it's something to think about, right?
Yeah,
something you should question.
It's funny because every podcast end up being about
fuck the patriarchy.
Oh yeah, which is, I guess, is a common theme here, and the main takeaway. But before we, that deserve another episode. We actually had the outlines for a discussion on toxic masculinity, and we hope to record it soon. You know how slow we go.
Maybe next year. And also, those beauty standards have been so deeply internalized in us that we, like, sometimes we don't even recognize them.
Right.
That they are irrational. We just accept them. We believe that they're true.
Because I mentioned social media, but I think it also comes from a community, right?
Culture.
Our culture, our family, the people around us constantly also imposing and stating those standards, or have behaviors that respond accordingly to how you fit in along the scale of those standards.
Yeah, I think the most common thing is family members commenting on your weight, like even whether you look thinner or you look fatter, like have you gained weight, and it's just so easy and common for people to comment on other people's bodies here. I feel like, especially pregnant women. Oh my god, when I was pregnant, everyone felt the need to comment on how big my bum was, or like can I touch it? And before I could say anything, they're like, oh, and bless me. But like, I feel like it also reflects how bodily autonomy is not respected, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like, just because I can see it, I can comment on it.
Yeah. I remember part of my reverse cultural shock when I moved back from the States a few years ago was the fact that people just start commenting on your body. But you know, in the US, you receive compliments, right? And then it's never anything negative, because that's how it should be. If you say something, it better be something nice. If you don't have anything nice to say, shut the hell up. But in Vietnam, it was completely different. And I remember I was like, whoa. And I mean, it took me a while, but then I immediately, you know, I'm like, okay, I'm not putting up with this. And I just straight up just call people out and just like say, that's really rude of you. And so those around me long enough know to not do that. But I can imagine for other women, especially who are so used to just receiving those and thinking, oh yeah, because you know they have the rights to do that, and how terrible it must be, because you internalize those messages and those comments.
And it's not just women; it's also, it affects men also.
Yeah,
like I just have that to say. I think it also affects men, even though I because I'm not a man, I've never experienced being commented on my body. Like, but I can but look, whenever I was out with him to meet parents, the parents would like comment on his body and be like, oh, you gained weight, or like, oh, you lost weight. And it's also, I think it's also their way of showing that they care about him and their health, but it can also be very intrusive. I feel like,
I think there's usually, like, it's usually well intentioned. I'm not saying it's not, but most of the time it actually has negative impacts.
Intentions do not matter that much, right? The results matter.
Words that actually are spoken matter.
And so we just kind of make a nice link to our next part of the discussion, which is about the impacts of these beauty standards on women's well-being. And I'm sorry, I feel like I'm just taking all the camera time, but we have to divide it into a section. Divide and conquer. So I do wanna, because Chang, you know, the example that Chang observed with me earlier today, it's true, it's an impact of these unrealistic beauty standards, right? In Vietnam, or I guess in Asia in general, or even the world, we have such a narrow definition of what is beautiful, what is desirable, and or like what is not fat. And I because I grew up, when I was a baby, I was a bit chubby, and I received many comments that I was a chubby kid, and I internalized that. And you know, throughout puberty, I was always like an average looking healthy kid, but I always remember feeling very conscious about my body, whether I looked fat or not. And I mean, even to this day, it's on my good days, I have and I've been to therapy, and I have done enough work to know that those are not facts and not the reality. But on a bad, like on days when I'm not feeling very good about myself, when I'm off, it's very easy to just go back into that mode of thinking, oh, you know, I don't look great. And I think that's the first mental impact that I want to talk about, is the general sense of I'm not good enough, because I don't fit in exactly to that very narrow definition of beauty. And I think there's also a lot of anxiety in that, social anxiety. For example, like before we recorded, you spent a lot of time trying to like sit at an angle where you felt like you didn't look as fat, and I think there's just better energy spent elsewhere, you know?
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I could also imagine for a lot of people, like the anxiety when they choose an outfit or to go out or not. And I know I'm pulling a lot of personal example here, but in high school or in middle school, I wanted to wear shorts, but I didn't feel like I could because at the time, you know, with K-pop and Girls' Generation era, you know, like all the really skinny girls with long and skinny legs, those are the only one that could wear shorts, and yeah, I didn't think that I could until and there was a lot of anxiety. Like, I want to wear this, but I think, you know, people would judge and comment on how I look. And yeah, like you said, the energy better spent, you know, doing something else. But that's the thing about these kind of impacts. They're not logical.
Yeah.
Right? They distort your sense of self, your body image, and that's the deeper, that's the more harmful impacts of it. And that leads to depressions, eating disorders. Anorexia is the mental illness that killed most people. And even people that recover from anorexia, their vital organs have suffered during the process, and then you know, it's very hard for them to live
a healthy
life after anorexia because of all those, like, the damage has been done.
Yeah, so the impact is not just mental and emotional, but it's also physical. So it's very real. It's something that can, like, prevent you from actually living your best life.
Yeah, and it could also kill you.
Yeah.
Lots of people have died through different reasons, but as, you know, a consequence of these unrealistic beauty standards.
Yeah, I know this girl from my university. She's from Korea, and she dated my friend for a while. And so in Korea, they have, you know, this beauty standards is even more narrow than ours, and so anything that is, so it's very easy to be categorized as fat in Korea. And so she was very healthy looking, very cute girl, but she had this notion that she was fat, and then she had an eating disorder, and then she suffered from depression, and she wanted to take her life a few times. And she told my friend about how when she went back to Korea during the breaks, whenever she ate a snack, her mother would tell her that, "Do you think that's enough to eat? Or, like, watch your weight." And it's really, really, like, did a number on her. Like,
yeah,
even though she's very cute, very healthy, she has great skin, but she always had this very, you know, like, sad look about her. And she wanted to commit suicide a few times.
That's so sad.
Yeah, while my friend was dating her. And that just shows that even mothers who are supposed to look out for their kids, they're also impacted by these beauty standards.
Yeah,
and
it's like generational trauma.
Yeah,
because the thing is, in her mom's mind, it must be like, oh, I'm doing this so that you look great, and so that you will have a great future.
Yeah, I'm looking out for you. Yeah, I'm taking care of you. But actually, it really destroys the daughter's, like, sense of self and
self-confidence.
Yeah. And another thing that we want to discuss is the impact is physical, mental, and also there's a risk from abusing plastic surgery. Yeah, and we want to say that we're not against plastic surgery, but abusing plastic surgery has very real and can be life-threatening as well.
Yeah, like consequences.
Yeah, like if you constantly feel like you have to chase the beauty standards and you have to look a certain way and you have to change how you look, because as we said, beauty standards change. They change over time. They change as the trends change. They change from countries to countries. And so if you always feel like being me is not good enough and I need to fit in with this very narrow beauty standards, and you use plastic surgery to achieve that, like, the cost is financial cost. There's financial cost. There's health risk involved. Like, even when you go to very credible or very skillful technicians or doctors or surgeons, there's still the risk. But imagining, like young girls, especially those who are very easily impressionable and very easy to be influenced, they want to look a certain way and they do not have the resources to go to very qualified surgeons, and they go to those shady facilities. That the consequences can be deadly.
Yeah, so many women die on because of having plastic surgery.
Yeah, in Vietnam alone.
In Vietnam alone, in the world as well. I also read a few stories about like people going to Turkey or Brazil, where plastic surgery are cheap, done like can be like on a 10 on the street, and like when women's lives are not really valued there.
And like, but they are the ones who are willingly put their lives at risk to achieve those beauty standards. And I think that's sad. Like, I read this story about a girl in Lào Cai, Lạng Sơn. She's just 16 or 17 years old, and she wanted to have filler on her nose. And so she went to a shady facility, and they injected the filler at the wrong places, and then she ended up with both of her eyes being blinded. And like the whole future ended just like that, right? She's just in high school, but now she cannot see anymore. And it's just because she wanted to look like those girls in the magazine or on social media.
Yeah. And I do want to say that the need to feel good about oneself is important, right?
Yeah, it's
legit, and we're not saying that, oh, don't try to look nice or don't take care of how you look or of your appearances. But what we're trying to say here is when all of your sense of self-worth, self-confidence, your identity comes from these external validation, these unrealistic beauty standards, these fleeting beauty standards, then that could get very dangerous. And oftentimes it would never feel like you're enough. So if you have a strong sense of self, right, and you know who you are regardless of your appearances, then fashion, makeup, these things I think can be a tool for empowerment. Like whenever I put on a nice outfit, I feel great. It makes me feel extra nice about myself. But on days when Trang tell me that fashion, because Trang can be the fashion police here, I still feel fine about myself. I'm like, okay, I made some bad choice.
But also, like, because of our relationship, like the dynamic and we're close. So if a stranger come up to me and be like, your outfit looks like shit, like, I would just slap that person. Like, bitch slap. And Zoe's point is also what I want to say is that once you tie yourself to those like very fleeting and those very like external things, it will be very hard to feel fulfilled. Like, for example, I used to bleach my hair a lot too, and not saying that bleaching hair is a bad thing. Like, I did it for like 3 or 4 years, and then when I got pregnant, I couldn't do it anymore because I was being cautious for the baby. And also after I delivered the baby, my hair started falling out postpartum, and so I didn't want to bleach it anymore. And my old self would be very upset for not being able to bleach my hair. I feel like my identity was being robbed. But right now, I feel fine, and I embrace the changes of my body, and like my hair is not the only way for me to express myself or to feel connected to who I am, right? And I think that's also a major growth for me, because like before I was very like I hyper focused on the clothes that I wore, or like the kind of like the brands that I was using, like things, all those very external things. But right now I feel more sure about myself, and it's so much lighter, like whenever
liberating.
Yeah, it is liberating. For example, like there are days where I do not have time to put out a nice outfit or be very careful, like put on makeup or anything, but I do not feel shitty about myself like I would have before. And right now I feel fine. And I think another point worth mentioning is that beauty standards change, and also your body will change. Your body will not be this way forever.
Yeah, your skin will change.
Yeah.
As you age.
Your hair will change.
Yeah, I know. Your black roots will grow.
And also, like, if you want to have kids, after you have kids, your body will change dramatically. And if you feel like your self-worth is tied to how your body looks, and once they change, it will be very hard to cope, because I also went through that. Like, I obsessively watch myself in the mirror every day after I gave birth to see if I bounce back to my old body, because I've seen celebrities do that. But I realized that it's not realistic, and I just let it go, and I feel so much better.
Yeah. That story about after giving birth, because I remember Kim Kardashian, after she gave birth, I can't remember to her first or second or whatever, what babies, and she posted on Instagram a picture of her very shortly after, like a week or something, like that crazy shape again. And a lot of one of them, actress and activist that I follow on these matter, Jamila. Yeah, she really took, she really had her arguments against that picture, because it's so unrealistic.
Yeah, what does it say to other moms, right?
Yeah, who can afford so many nannies so that you could go work out and do all of the things to shrink your body back in such a short amount of time? And the thing is, losing so much weight
is not healthy
in such a short amount of time. Also not healthy and not sustainable.
Yeah, especially like those. Kim Kardashian is a huge influencer, so the things that she says, the things that she posts, has an impact on the people that follow her.
Yeah,
right.
And it's funny because she, on many interviews, have stated that she's actually the one that cares the most about how she looks, and she's the most critical of it. And you know what? I do believe her. But the thing is, she is already the standard. She created it. She emphasized it. She enhanced it, and she still doesn't feel like she's enough. And so it goes to show the mental impact. And the thing is, but then she keeps promoting it, right? And she keeps living it. And there's just so many teenage girls, young women feel like, oh my goodness, they need to look like that to feel beautiful, and obviously they end up feeling not enough. And that just creates like generation and generation, people deeply insecure and not happy with how they look, but just buying things and doing things with the hope that one day they feel good enough about themselves.
Yeah, that story that you just told really shows that beauty or feeling beautiful is really about, it's a state of mind. It's how you feel inside, right? Because like you said, Kim Kardashian is already the standards of beauty, but she doesn't feel beautiful all the time. She's still very critical of how she looks. And and so many people look up to her to be beautiful like her, and she's still like, I'm not beautiful enough.
I need to enhance my ass. I need to deflate it,
edit my photos to feel beautiful. And that brings us to our next point that we want to discuss is why these ideas and how pervasive these ideas are, and how to navigate in a world full of like unrealistic beauty standards or just beauty standards.
And I think we mentioned this briefly, but I think the rise of social media definitely contribute a part to how they get so pervasive. Because before the time of social media, we have magazines, we have movies, but it's not a 24/7 feed that you always see. Right now, when I'm on Instagram, I see so many hot women in bikinis, and the thing is, like, it's not that I'm jealous, right? And I'm like, oh, I hate these women. It's like, oh, I hate me.
Yeah, I hate
Why can't I
myself.
look like this?
Mm.
And that's me, like, you know, hitting my 30s and
Mm.
still can't help but feeling inadequate.
Being 30 and also going to therapy.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Working so hard on self-love and still feel shitty about ourselves whenever we see women in amazing bikini photos. Right.
So I am very grateful that social media weren't around when I was, you know, hitting puberty and then going and then was a teenager, because I could only imagine how soul sucking, pride deflating that would be. Right? And
I have that experience.
oh, because you were the cool kids on Tumblr.
No, not because of Tumblr. No, it was actually Facebook in the year 2010. With the rise of the bleaching cream, whitening skin cream, and so I had quite tan skin back then because I hung out a lot during the summer, and I had a boyfriend then that would always comment on how tan I look and how he wanted me to look like pale. And I saw those bleaching cream, and I saw those photos of girls with really, you know, like their skin like glows up in the dark, you know, that like vampires. That's how pale they look. Must have been Photoshop, but I was stupid. I was 17. I didn't know any better, and so I was heavily influenced by those photos and also by the comments that my boyfriend was making about my skin at the time. And even though I knew that those bleaching cream was like, you know, like game choton, they're highly toxic, but I considered buying them, even though I did have a lot of money back then. They were also very crazy expensive. You know, those stories of hot girl band game show, you know, like influencers selling bleaching cream and then building houses, and because they make huge money out of them. Yeah, because the thing is, like, the product's expensive, but it sells a lot. Yeah, it sells so well because there's just so many. Yeah, and the ingredients also dirt cheap because it's just toxicity. It's just lead and corticoid. Yeah. And I even considered buying them, even though like I was going to a gifted high school, so like intellectually not dumb. Yeah, I'm not dumb. I wasn't dumb, but I was like, oh my god, maybe I should buy one of these to feel better about myself. Yeah, to look better. That's again going back to the original point. It's not logical, right? And it's like distort your sense of self, your body image, and it also give you the urge, the impulse. It keep pushing you to do things that you know are not good for you. Yeah, like, you know, like feeling and saying those comments about myself. I know it's not good for me, but there's just that urges. Or like me buying like diet pills when I was 18, because that's when I started to have my boobs only started to grow then, along with my tummy. I was like, oh my god. So I bought those diet pills because I thought I was fat and I needed those diet pills to look, you know, like skinny, like those girls in the magazine. And also I had the same anxiety as you when I wore shorts, that my thighs were so big, and so I needed the pills so I could wear shorts beautifully. And those pills like made me dizzy and nauseous all the time. And in the like direction to use, they said that there's a limit on the calories intake, and they said that just consume a lot of water whenever you feel hungry. And that cannot be good. And also it was the time when my brain was still developing, was still growing, and I needed the nutrition. Maybe that's why I have this time. I was gonna say, when you said drink a lot of water, like one of our slogan at Sparkrap is like stay hydrated, but also stay fat. Yeah. Eat food, not just drink water. Yeah. And those pills were even very expensive for me because I wasn't working, and I saved up for them, and I had them shipped to me from the US. And yeah, and so at the time I thought everything imported must be good. Like, anyway, and good waste of time. Good one. But like those pills made me physically sick, and I couldn't finish one bottle, and I gave them to my aunt, who also thought she was fat.
Show your care.
But yeah, like I wasn't fat at all. I was like 160 centimeters high, and I was around 50 kilograms. Tall. I'm so sorry. 160. That's what happened.
That's what happened when you starve yourself at the age of
Development.
yeah, 18.
Yeah. Also, like my height and my weight wasn't very like disproportionate.
Yeah, you looked great. You look great.
Yeah.
You always do.
Yes, and as I look back at like old photos right now, like I think to myself, that's what healthy looks like. I'm way too thin now, but like I looked very healthy, and yet I was being eaten away by those perceptions that I was fat and that I didn't look pretty, and a lot of anxiety and whatever I wanted to wear.
Yeah. And it's funny because you mentioned the expensive diet pills from the US, because I think a part of this is also there's just so much money to be made off of women insecurity. I mean, people insecurity, but especially women, right?
Yeah.
Billions and billions dollar worth of it, industries, the fashion industry, the dietary, the supplements, food, industry, the plastic surgery industry, the cosmetic industry, even now like on social media running ads, right? Ads targeting young women. There's just so much money made off of it, so people keep doing it, people keep pushing it, and keep trying to make us feel like if we don't buy their products, we're less than.
Yeah, I have the same experience, and it's very real for me. For example, whenever I see someone wearing something like a new clothes or like see an ad for it, I have this need to buy it, and then I would tell my husband that I want to buy this thing, and my husband is like, did you just see an ad for it? And I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. So it can affect us in a very like real and unconsciously. We do not even realize it sometimes. That's how pervasive and how it has really deeply impacted our lives.
Yeah.
Consumerism.
Consumerism, I think, is really one of the main. I mean, it's the reason, it's the cause, and it keep perpetuating these unrealistic beauty standards. And another thing that we need to keep in mind is how with these social media contents and that you consume, most of the time they're edited, right? Heavily retouched, or they just have 10 people, 10-person like crew, like you said, to do their makeup, to do their hair, to tell them how to pose, the angle, the lighting. Most often these influencer or celebrities that you see amazing photos of, they don't look like that in real life. And I guess in a way I do feel a little bit more hopeful in the future, because nowadays most celebrities, they do have a disclaimer that whether something is an ad or whether this photo
was edited,
or I mean, I love some celebrity start having the approach of like just have unfiltered photo of themselves, like Doja Cat. I love her. Her Instagram is unhinged. Just photos of her with no eyebrows and just doing, or like face with acne. But yeah, that's what most people look like.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that in the midst of all of these noises and bombardment of unrealistic beauty standards, there are people with high, like a lot of followers with a platform, and not afraid to be their authentic self, and that's really powerful.
Or like celebrities or like fashion brands, like for example, I went to Uniqlo website the other day, and I saw that in their underwear sections they do not just have the like usual standard figure types of figure, but they also have these curvy models or these plus size models with like rolls in the stomach. And I think that will make women with that body type feel a lot better when they come and they shop on the website, even though the main goal of that is still to get people to buy their stuff. but at least people can feel good about themselves while buying the stuff.
Yeah. I think representation definitely matter, and there's more and more diversity of body types, of skin colors, of facial features being represented, and I do feel that we're heading in the right direction. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done.
So much work
on ourselves and the whole like those industry in society. Tao không nhớ là mình đã nói với đoạn Kim K chưa?
Kim K về cái
đoạn mà kiểu
nói
nó
rồi.
insecure cái
Nói rồi.
ok. Đấy.
Đấy xong rồi đấy thì đây là anorexia. Thế ta sẽ nói tiếp là thế đấy.
What to do?
Yeah. Thế, we already discussed some of the things that we thought would be useful for us in order to navigate through all of these noises of how you should look like, and we think the most important thing is your awareness, like be awareness of your monologues, your
inner monologue.
Yeah, your inner monologues and your thoughts, and also about the content that you consume, because like Zoe said, and it's true that we're on our phone, we're on our laptop, we watch TV, like we 24/7 we're surrounded by information and input, like trying to get us to think a certain way, we're trying to get us to buy the products, and it's very easy to be persuaded and to give in and to be like, I don't want to feel this way by myself anymore. Maybe spending money on this product will help. I have the exact same thought process so many times, but Zoe and I were both getting better at that as well, because right now whenever we want to buy something, we ask ourselves questions like, do we need this? And like, for example, like the mini skirt that I sent to the week, we spent several days like contemplating it. We didn't just impulsively bought it like before. And I think that's growth, and that's a step forward for us. And
and I think in Thai, I mean, we don't generally have control over what kind of ads we're shown, but also the people that you follow on social media, right? Even friends or acquaintances or celebrities, like follow the people that the contents don't make you question your self-worth, right? I know it may sound a bit toxic because social media is a place for you to be social, but not really. It should be a place where you feel okay about yourself.
Yeah.
So
any place should be that place.
Yeah. So I had that social media detox, right? I had to really look into what kind of content I'm consuming and really be mindful about that. So that's the first thing, but also be aware of your environment, the people that you spend time with, your friends, your family, what kind of things that they're telling you, or what kind of messages they're sending you. Are you with friends who can engage with you at a deep level, or do you have friends that constantly pressuring you or make you feel like you need to buy clothes or do things to fit in with them?
And also be mindful of what they tell you, and like how you feel around them, and how you feel when you see those content. Like Zoe said, I also unfollow a lot of like shops on Instagram, because when I see them posting photos, I would wanna buy their products, and it's not sustainable, and it's a waste of money, and I do not have the space to store all of that clothes anymore. And so it's very important for us to be in touch with ourselves and know our boundaries, right? And really understand what makes us feel good and what makes us feel bad about ourselves, and draw a line and be like, this is not productive for me and my mental health, and I will not be engaging in this content, or I will not be engaging in interactions with this person anymore. And
so be mindful, be aware of your surrounding, your environment, not just your digital environment, but your physical environment as well. If the people around you are telling you things that make you feel ashamed of how you look, then maybe it's time to disengage and have your distance.
Cut that person out of your life.
And the other thing we do want to talk about also is not a one-way street, right? It's not only what you receive from the environment, but also what you put out in the environment, because all the internalized messages, they came from somewhere, right? So, and now you're also in a position to be able to influence someone around you.
Yeah, to make them feel good about themselves, and especially it's especially so important when you have children, or when you work with children, or when you interact with children on a daily basis,
or teenagers, or young people.
Yeah. Like for example, I have a young baby. She's just 1 year old, but when she was just born, she had a button nose, and she still has that. And button nose is not considered very attractive in our Asian beauty standards. And my first thought when I saw that was that, oh no, I'm gonna have to get her nose job when she grew up, and that was very toxic of me. And I had to also realize my toxic tendency. That also comes from all of the things that I've been told as a kid, and I have to realize and I have to unlearn those behaviors and those tendencies so that I can give my kid the kind of self-acceptance, or the right kind of messages. And I want her to accept herself and love herself. And I have this friend whose kids are 4 or 5 years old, and they're in kindergarten, and one day they come back and tell their parents that there's a kid in their kindergarten class that is kind of fat, and that's why everybody tease on that person, that kid. And then they told my friend that I don't want to be fat, I don't want to get teased on, I want to be beautiful, so I'm gonna watch what I eat. And then my friend told me and be like, oh, kids these days, they are very smart, they already know so many things, but what they know is what you tell them, right? And what they absorb from the environment. And it just makes me sad that a 4 or 5 year old has to think that she's not already good enough, and that she needs to watch what she eats. I don't think she understands what that really means. But like that notion, she has that notion of, you know, like I cannot
enjoy food.
Yeah, I cannot enjoy food and just eat whatever I want to eat, because there's the risk that I will be fat, and I don't want to be fat. And that's just sad. That just makes me very sad as a mother of a young kid. And she even told me that since my kid is chubby, maybe I should watch her weight. And she's just 1 year old, and I sometimes I get concerned about her weight, but from like a purely health perspective, because by any standards, by any WHO standards that I look up, she's overweight for her age, and her height is not proportionate. But I don't think that I'll ever tell her that you need to watch what you eat because you're fat.
Yeah,
that's really not my place.
Yeah, and I mean, there's just so many things about the story that you just told with your friend's kid. One, I think, you know, there's oftentimes people with fat phobia or discussing fat people's weight, they often mask it with the health concern, right? And it can get, and I think it's problematic in many ways, because people don't address the fat phobia. And then they make people feel shitty about themselves. And they're like, oh, I'm saying this because I care about you. One example came to mind is Lizzo. She's wonderful. She's very fit, very healthy. She dances, sings, plays the flute, twerks for like an hour straight, which I don't think any of us can do. 1 minute and we're like, oh, back pain.
We can never.
So you know, health is not a problem for Lizzo, right? But there's just so many people out there still comments and
disguise the concern as health concern.
Like, oh, she's so fat, I'm just worried about her health, she seems unhealthy. I'm like, no, that's your fat phobia talking. And so again, what I'm trying to say here with this conversation is be mindful of what you tell people, what you tell yourself out loud in front of children, and be mindful. And you know, like, and this goes to the first point of being self-aware as well, right? Like when you catch yourself having those thoughts. And I admit it, I do sometimes too. And I have to really sit with myself and ask me, where does all of this come from?
Right. Yeah. And I think one of the reason why rút thì chưa được vậy đúng không? Chưa nhắc đến đúng không? And one of the reason why we're so hyper focused and so oftentimes that we tie our self-worth to our external appearance is that because of the comments that we get from other people, and sometimes even compliments can be validating and can be good for our sense of self, but they can also be harmful in the sense that sometimes when you get compliments, for example, Zoe and I, we get complimented on how young we look for our age, and I think that's why we develop this anxiety about getting old, like a lot, because we don't even realize it until people tell us that we look so young for our age, and then we're like, okay, so if I do not look this young anymore, does that mean that I look worse?
Does it mean that I have less value?
Yeah. And so Zoe and I talked about this, and we have this, especially after having a kid, my body changes a lot, and so I have this anxiety about getting old, and I start to see some wrinkles on my face, and I'm 30 years old, so that's
What wrinkles?
There's some wrinkles, but like that's natural to get old, right? But we fight this natural process, and that's what's so unnatural. That's actually what needs to be stopped.
I mean, the cosmetic industry, especially the section when like anti-aging creams, machines, procedure like not like Botox to look not your age is such a common fixture, right? Hats, products, celebrity promoting it, and I do admit that this is where I still struggle, right? On one hand, I understand what you just said about, it's not natural, like everyone will age, everyone will die, and I know that I should, and I do want to embrace graceful aging, but at the same time, that internalized, glorified youth is so strong that whenever like, oh, I see a wrinkle, I freaked out. I don't want to, or knowing that I'm approaching my 30 scares the shit out of me.
And I think it's also because we've been so deeply conditioned to. So, for example, whenever someone compliments us on how young we look, like we feel good, and then so what if? So when we do not look that young anymore, does that mean that we start feeling good about ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And that's I think that's a process that has been going on for a long time, and unlearning it also takes time.
Yeah, and that's why the message that we send out to the world is also important, right? When we even compliments, like if you excessively compliment someone on just their appearances, yes, they will internalize that. Okay, that is my self-worth, right? Instead of my intelligence, instead of my grit, my tenacity, or my character, they're like, ooh, my appearances, right?
Yeah.
And so Trang, in other trial, you have an example, BoJack Horseman.
Yeah. So I also, I'm very hyper focused on my kid's appearance. She's very cute, and I'd be like, oh, you're so cute, you're the cutest baby, you're so pretty. And my husband tells me, like, you tell her she looks cute a lot, and I think that will be a problem when she grows up. And I do not think much of it until I saw this episode of in a series called BoJack Horseman, and Diane Nguyen, one of the characters, said that, okay, so there's this kid, and I think you're very cute, but I will not just value you based on your look, because even though you're tiny, you're already a tiny human being with your personality and your characteristics, and like I will try to see past your cute look to really see into who you really are and appreciate that about you. And I think it's so important, and like when we interact with children, we do not, oftentimes we overlook their personality. We just see this cute kid or whether it's not cute, and that's it because we think they're kids. But kids, they have their own world, they have their own inner world, emotional world inside of them, and so everything that you tell them is important. When you tell them they're cute, like they will think that, okay, I'm cute, so that's what's good about me. But if you tell them that you're so smart, you're so strong, you're kind, you always try your best in what you do, they will also internalize that that's what good about me also, because our bodies will change, our looks will change, beauty standards change, but also this
You
body
change.
you change, right? And when you tie something to when you tie yourself to something that is bound to change and that will not stay forever, so when that's gone, then what are you left with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a cliche, but beauty comes from within, and it should not be your only identity, right? And you're so much more than just how you look like. And yes, I know it's cliche, and I do want to, before we go to the conclusion, have a disclaimer. Arrogant, obnoxious people may disagree with this disclaimer that we understand that our whole take is from a position of privilege, because Chang and I, by any standards, we are, considered. I'm sorry, I feel a little bit awkward saying this, but not really. Conventionally, adequately attractive.
Adequately attractive. Yeah, but it's true, and we also benefit from that. For example, when we meet someone for the first time, like job interviews, or when we date, and we acknowledge that we have the benefit, the privilege of being above average looking. But and it may sound cliche or like hypocritical.
Hypocritical,
like, for us to say that beauty doesn't matter. It matters.
Yeah,
but
it should not be the only thing that matters.
Yeah, and beauty is not just what's outside, and beauty is actually, I think, it's a feeling.
It's a state of mind.
When you feel beautiful, then you're beautiful.
And it's true. I feel this all the time when I watch drag shows and drag queens perform, like the confidence, the talent, and it's just contagious and inspirational. And like whenever you meet or you interact with someone who's confident and obviously very sure of themselves, you just immediately feel attracted and drawn to them. And I think that kind of power, energy is what will last and stays with you. And to conclude, the beauty standards, especially unrealistic beauty standards, are a social construct. They're bound to change with time across region, and therefore should not be your only source for external validation or sense of self. And we understand that it is very hard to stay sane and to have a strong sense of self or self-love or self-acceptance in this day and age where we constantly bombarded with images, people telling us how we should look like, how we should feel about ourselves. But it's possible. It is possible, and it takes effort. And we hope that whoever watching this, women or men or whoever you feel identify with yourself, know that it really comes from within. And once you have that self-acceptance, it really doesn't matter what other people tell you should look like.
And it's a long and hard journey that Zoe and I, with the help of therapy, we're still learning, and sometimes we still relapse, but it's possible, and it takes a lot of effort. And so sometimes when you feel like you like there's a setback, and that doesn't mean that that's it. Like, you can still make progress.
That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in next episode.
Bye.